place where the sins of humanity are laid bare, and in turn lay waste to the ever-dwindling echoes of what once was the fabric of our society. Do the turbulent waters now slowly drowning its victims under the murky guise of freedom of expression, instead merely conceal below its seductive and deceptive surface that muddy sediment beneath it, upon which now springs forth the bitter element of morbid curiosity and downright deviant behavior. As you feel your way down the blinding darkness of its halls, searching through its rooms, each blacker and bleaker than the last, revealing their mysteries at the potential cost of your immortal soul. Your senses tingle as adrenaline and dread work in concert to bring you to your knees. You search for some semblance of light, clinging and scratching at the walls, only to find yourself slipping deeper and deeper into its dark embrace. You may never return. The dark and/or deep web contains the worst of the dredge of society. Will you stand to be counted with this demented and profaned marketplace for the desperate and defiled? Or will you remain at arm's length, perhaps wondering a little more than you should, but through restraint can only fantasize about the dodged horrors and unwelcome encounters that may have come from putting your hand into the proverbial cookie jar? Drugs, sexual deviancy, animal cruelty, money laundering, human torture, abductions, pedophilia, and murder, to name a few, can still be counted as allies of the deep, dark web. Today, we explore this sinister phenomenon in a call to arms toward the spirit of decency. Will we find the flesh has been cut too deep, or is there a way to the redemption of the wounds? Will the scars eventually fade away? All this and more next on this episode of Diabolical.
Welcome, friends, patrons, and party animals, believers and skeptics, to another episode of Diabolical. Hey folks, we're back with my good buddy Colin, the Maniac Hardy. Colin, thanks for coming back.
I'm throwing TVs. I'm a maniac. That's what we do.
He's a TV
Thank
thrower.
you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming back, man. We really appreciate you, bud. So he's here all the way from San Antonio, which is about 45, 50 light years away, but he made it. And today's episode, as you already know from the intro, is all about the dark web, also called the deep web. Colin, initial thoughts?
I've never gone on the dark web.
I will never go on the dark web.
I'm afraid of the dark web. It frightens me. It is one of the biggest boogeyman concepts that I can think of. I mean, because it is completely man-made. It is not fake. It is not paranormal. It is really there, and terrible, terrible, monstrous things come from it.
It is diabolical. Yeah, the scary thing about the dark web for me, I guess, I would say initially, the most frightening thing about it is that it's allowed to go on. I mean, we're talking about everything from human torture animal torture, pedophilia, money laundering, drug selling. There's hitmen. It's all there. And whether 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 10 is real doesn't matter to me. The damn thing needs to be gotten rid of, and I don't understand why that bug has not been squashed.
No, you have a point there. But I think with the internet age and with freedom comes this organically grown, deeply troubling part of humankind, and it's just it's too late to squash it. It is taken on too much of a life of its own, and
You think?
I think so. I mean, you could try to shut it down, and it will pop up. It'll be like a hydra. Cut off one head, 7 more will grow.
Good point. I hate to think of it that way. I like to think that the feds could come rushing in, guns blazing, knock the whole thing down, and call it a day. But I guess it is a little bit more complicated than just it's up there, then it'll be up there, then it'll be up there. But I would still like to think that they would at least just kind of keep squashing it. It feels like they're almost nurturing the bad behavior by not putting in more regulation or putting in a bigger effort towards getting rid of it. I mean, it really should not be allowed to be.
Maybe so. You're probably right. I think that there's a few elements that create the perfect conditions for something so terrible as the dark web. I mean, you have a society based on freedom of thought, freedom of speech, free press.
Freedom to torture people online?
Well, you're not free to do that.
Well, apparently you are. If you're on the dark web, you can do it.
But we're in a world where, I mean, it doesn't matter if you can literally have someone in front of you, chopping someone's head off, and then all they have to do is say, "No, I didn't. It wasn't me." Do the old Eddie Murphy, "Wasn't me."
A CGI.
Yeah, it was a deep fake, and we're so mind boggled by the entire advent of all this technology that there's too many shadows to hide in these days.
That lends itself to the whole idea of the caught on camera thing, where someone, maybe they did or didn't, but let's say for an instance that somebody did have a real paranormal, what's I'm looking for? Experience.
Yeah.
A real paranormal. Let's say someone had a real paranormal experience and they caught it on camera. The first word out of anyone's mouth is fake. It's a bug, which is very possible. It's a guy in a suit. It's a mask on a stick, whatever. It's very easy to. My words aren't working today.
It's very easy to dismiss.
To debunk.
Yeah.
It's very easy to debunk. But why isn't that applied to the deep web or the dark web? And everyone's saying, it's fake, but it's obviously, sometimes it's real. And I mean, we're not talking about I caught a ghost on tape. We're talking about some woman in a chair being tortured and killed on video camera. It's not a fake naked child. It's not a fake, what did we see? Fetuses, dead fetuses. It's not a fake drug transaction. It's not a fake money laundering. These things are actually occurring on this, I don't know what you call it. I don't know if it's a, I know it's a subcategory of the internet, but I don't fully understand what the deep web is. Do you?
I mean, I feel it's a communication system for communities that cannot live above ground, so to speak. As in, it's got to be hidden in a cave, but it is
accessible.
It is a way to create communication. I mean, I've heard the stories of 2 individuals from across the country communicating to each other on the deep web or someone putting it on the deep web, an ad that they'll pay you $5,000 if you'll, fly across country and chop off their penis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it happens. It becomes a news story. It's not something that, it's not a YouTube video that you watch that someone's telling a story that could be fake. It's, New York Times reports a man, paid another man to have his penis chopped off. And it really is happening. And so it's a communication system for deviant thought.
It's frightening.
I think that our society is absolutely infatuated with deviant thought right now in this day and age. And it's not the first time it's ever happened, but in this current climate, I don't know everything that has caused it, but everyone is so fascinated with murder. Everyone's so fascinated with the minds of serial killers.
But this goes so much farther beyond morbid curiosity. This turns a new page in the desecration of humanity. It's so utterly disgusting and so utterly corrupt and allowed to be. I don't understand. That's the thing I don't understand. I'm having a really hard time grasping the concept that whether or not it was attempted to pop back up again and again and again is almost inconsequential to me. Why isn't the FBI or the CIA or whoever is in charge of this thing, why aren't you killing it? And every time it pops up, you kill it again.
Be better at your job.
I don't understand. I mean, I understand that maybe you're catching the predator, or maybe you're catching the rapist or the murderer, maybe you're catching people through it. I can see that side of it.
As in you let it be there so that you can use it to find evidence
to catch the bad guy, yeah.
Doing bad things, or find breadcrumbs
yes.
to find them.
But it feels more like it's almost like it's being nurtured, like it's being glamorized,
Yeah.
And that's the frightening part about it. Like it's okay. Like if you're in casual conversation with somebody, have you ever been to the dark web? The answer should always be no. But it's almost like if someone goes yes, you're like, oh really? What'd you see?
Like? Yeah.
What'd you see there?
Right.
Oh, I don't want to talk about it. But you went there. You dove into those muddy, murky waters. I don't understand that the muddy, murky waters are being allowed to continue to exist. That's the problem I have with the dark web at large. That's what upsets me. It shouldn't be so damn easy. And even if it's easy to keep popping back up, they shouldn't be letting it. They shouldn't be allowing it to be easy. You know what I'm saying? If you want to come up with another one, if we're going to kill this, we're going to stop it dead in its tracks. It doesn't exist anymore. Another one comes up. We're going to kill it. We're going to squash it. We're going to stop it dead in its tracks. And if you have to do that 100 times, you can't. It's like we talked about earlier. If it's like the high school student that decides to murder his classmates in a gun rampage, that kid often, and they've found this often when it comes to the psychiatric thought behind it, often is the revenge, and I'm gonna get them back for the way they treated me, and on top of everything else, I'll be famous. I won't be a face in the crowd anymore. I'm not gonna be just a shadow. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna be the guy that killed 17 people. They're allowing that to exist. They're going to say, oh, it's not okay for a kid to do that in high school. That's bad, but it's okay if it happens on the dark web, as long as, we have the ability to maybe catch one or two of them. I don't think that's good enough of an answer. I mean, maybe I'm ranting here. Maybe I'm going off the rails. I don't think I am.
No, you make a valid point.
It feels so wrong.
Right.
That I don't understand the concept of just allowing it to keep going. I don't understand why there isn't more regulations against it. There's more regulations on how you use your bank card than on how you can murder people on camera and it be seen by the world at large if they're willing to go into the site. That doesn't make any sense to me.
But I do think in our freedom-obsessed culture, and we do have an obsession with true freedom. What is freedom? I don't know. Nobody knows.
That concept's losing ground hard right now.
Okay, but complete freedom means that you can explore any idea, you can talk about anything,
But you
can
can't
think about
break the
anything.
law.
Right.
You can't cause harm to another individual.
But the confusion that we're, in the middle of is what is true freedom, and the reason why there haven't been all these laws made about the internet up to this point is our society has allowed it to remain a Wild West or a black market, or in a lot of ways. I mean, from the time it started, from the time it really gained popularity, I would say in the 90s is where it really started becoming ubiquitous to everybody. How much real clamping down has happened on what you can and can't do via the internet
Okay,
from then to now?
let me propose this to you. A pedophiliac comes out with a line of t-shirts. Wouldn't they squash that, whoever they are, wouldn't they squash that in immediately? You wouldn't find those t-shirts at Walmart. It wouldn't be available to the world at large, and the world at large would already look down upon it. You would think that someone would go, absolutely not, get him, put him in jail, that's not okay, right?
What if that person is connected? So a great example of all of this that we're talking about would be Josh Duggar. I mean, he's been caught with all sorts of child pornography. Mm-hmm. He's been accused of molestation, but he still has people like within his organization, within his community, that say, he was a little lost, but he's not bad. These ideas are all, drummed up and out of proportion. But the law is saying that no, he actually did break the law, but he's got a strong enough community around him that is fighting against the law and won't just admit that one of their own is truly doing something wrong. And that does happen constantly. And
Okay, we'll shift it to murder.
Okay.
It wouldn't be okay to murder somebody, but apparently on the dark web, you can go watch somebody get murdered. You can buy a wallet made of a guy. You can buy a human skin wallet on the dark web.
Okay, but that wallet could just be made out of freaking cowhide, and
What
then
if it's not?
They catch you.
What if it's not?
Yeah.
I mean, for all you know, they're grave digging.
So you're saying that the dark web is generating the behavior. You're not saying that the behavior is generating the dark web.
I'm saying it's tit for tat. It's back and forth. It's one is that it's being allowed to happen. Two, it's being glorified by the people that want to go see it. And then three, they're both allowed to exist in the same space as long as they don't cross some certain boundary. And even if they do cross that certain boundary, it has to be proven that they actually crossed the boundary. I'm saying, why even open up that Pandora's box? Why is that box even being allowed to be opened? It should have been shut a long time ago, and it's not. And you can say all day long, well, they're monitoring. Okay, great, but you're still letting it go on. Okay, like let's say that one of the real murderers is a very good hacker to the point that you can't find him.
Okay.
The FBI, with all of their facilities and resources, cannot get through and find out this guy's address and where he is. But he's obviously torturing and killing people. Don't you think that it's wrong that that guy is able to keep putting his stuff up and someone can go find it? Isn't it enough to say that no one should be able to find it? Isn't that as important as catching the guy? Because if you're giving him fuel for fodder, if you're giving him a license to kill by saying, well, it's okay, he's on the internet and people can go and find it and they can watch it. Who's the victim and who's responsible? Is it the people that are willing to go watch it? Is it the guy that did it? I would say that the guy that did it is the biggest problem. And the second biggest problem is the people that would go to find it. I get morbid curiosity, and I'm sure that there are people that have stumbled across sites that they did not mean to stumble across, right?
Sure.
Like the guy that went into a Bitcoin launder thing and then it immediately grabbed his address and he's like, no, I don't want that. And he's trying to leave the page. You know, that guy he wasn't already in the right headspace by even getting involved in it in the first place. He already shouldn't have been there, and he's going to pay the price for his mistake, you know? And it's like, well, if you're willing to get on there and start screwing around on the deep web, a thing that you know is basically, for all intents and purposes, pure evil incarnate, you should be held accountable too. I'm not saying that if you didn't accidentally, you can accidentally stumble across something, but you're putting yourself in those waters. It's like if you went drinking with a serial killer and he told you, he confessed he was a serial killer. Would you keep drinking with him, or would you call the cops? The dark web feels like you sat around and drank with him. That's what it feels like to me. And I don't understand why the feds aren't rushing in with guns blazing and saying, both of y'all come with us. And if nothing else, at least you got to answer some questions. It just doesn't make any sense that it's being allowed to go on.
Okay, so we watched our video on the deep web, and it had its kind of 3 layers. I'm sure there's 7 layers, just like hell.
Was this 3?
Well, I would say it was about 3, because there was the top layer was all monetary, because you had money laundering, you had hitmen, you had
that was his first one, was hitmen.
Well, I know, and I know that's murder, but this was money laundering. This was
drug sales,
drugs. This is all the black market economy,
right?
And I think that is what actually makes the dark web continue to exist.
Shouldn't that be illegal? Just like if I was selling illegal guns and heroin in my house?
But why do you think why don't they just go stop heroin? Why don't they just go stop the drug trade?
If it was found out that I was selling heroin out of my house, the cops would eventually end up at my doorstep and arrest me.
Unless you were connected just right and there was enough money that it was connected to the right people.
So you're saying dirty feds and dirty cops are part of why it's allowed to keep going?
Or dirty politicians, or dirty public officials.
Maybe.
I mean, that are tied to dirty money, dirty corporate people with massive amounts of influence and power. You know that those are in there. Those are tied in. And when there is that much of a sub-economy happening, it doesn't just get shut down. That it's tied to the light economy. It's tied to the light web. Cryptocurrency is fighting to become the new currency, and it was born in the dark web. And the whole concept of being able to encrypt everything, transactions and what happens on the web, allowing private transactions to take place monetarily. And it could be, look, I just want to buy some magazines that are, I want to buy National Geographic. I don't want anybody to know, because they'll know I'm a dork, and that I like to read articles about glaciers. And you want it to be private. Or let's say you want to buy your psychiatric drugs, but you don't want your employer to find out.
That's different.
No, it's not, because that idea and that need for privacy is what creates the idea that crypto is good and that people want to use it. And what ties right into that is
the dark web?
Hidden money. The dark web is tied to crypto. The dark web is tied to a black market economy. And black market economy.
There's a difference between a black bag around my Playboy and, in the same sentence, I bought it from a serial killer. So that's what the dark web is. It feels like the serial killer has a space to advertise for his own insanity. Like he has a place to just let the world know how he feels, and gets to just let the world know what he thinks is okay.
But that's all over Hulu and Netflix and every other streaming service now. How serial killers feel.
Well, no. There's a difference. Also, there's a difference between telling a story and it's fake, and flat out kidnapping somebody, putting them in a room, torturing them, and killing them on camera, and getting paid by people who are willing to watch it.
Okay, so
That's on the dark web.
So you're talking about the Colin Hanks movie where people are actually paying him to murder someone on a streaming service.
That's what's on the dark web. That's one of the things on the dark web.
Okay. I mean, I thought it was more like the murder happened, they put it up, and people paid for it, which is no different than Faces of Death when we were kids.
People are making an enterprise, a monetary enterprise out of things like torture and murder and kidnapping and stealing and running guns and being able to hire hitman. It's like when the guy was talking about the hitman thing. There was 50 adverts for hitmen. Now, we know fully that at least 75% of that is some guy that thought it would be funny to put up, I like kill, call me, you know. There's those guys, but there's that 1, 2, 3% of the real crazies, which is mind-boggling. Not only are you basically showing your hand, but you are actually that guy, and it's being allowed to exist. You're being allowed to exist in that space. And if I really want to find a hitman, if I'm willing to filter through and go through the garbage and maybe even come across a couple of FBI agents who are looking for people looking for hitmen, if I'm willing to go through all that space, I might actually find one there. That's frightening. That's a lot different than I wanted to see The Professional in 4K.
So our legal system is not caught up. Our legal system is too far behind. I mean, have you heard
Or at least being allowed to be behind.
Have you heard the story or read the story or watched the HBO documentary about Cannibal Cop?
Cannibal Cop?
Cannibal Cop. It's not a 80s movie that you would see on the video store shelf, although that is what it sounds like.
Right.
You know, Chopping Mall and Cannibal Cop go hand in hand. Cannibal Cop was a police officer, I believe in New York City, who would get on the dark web, and he ended up in court saying that this was all fantasy and that he was in a community that all fantasized, and they were role playing, but they would have these exchanges about kidnapping women, you know, torturing them, killing them, and eating them, to the point where he was talking about, you know, he would be up at night going back and forth with these people in other countries and everywhere about his wife who was in the next room sleeping, about killing her and eating her, and they'd be like, would you really do it? Ooh, I think I would. I don't know. And he went to the point where he even went and he went to a party that one of his college friends had. He drove to it, hung out, acted normal, but then when you go back and search his dark web history, he's communicating with his friends all about how he's gonna go, he's gonna scope it out, he's gonna make a plan, he's going to kind of watch her patterns when he goes to travel to this party so that he can abduct her, to the point where he bought rope and duct tape and everything else, and it really looked like he and two guys were gonna plan this abduction, and then they were gonna do this, you know, killing, and then, you know, eat the person they killed.
But they didn't get minority reported.
Did they? He went to trial, and the argument was, is this illegal? And the answer was, no, it's not, because he'd never acted upon it.
Yeah.
He didn't minority. We don't have minority.
Yeah, and you see that in like somebody comes to your door and they want to kill you, but all they did was knock on it, and you call the cops.
Right.
And they come over there and they like arrest him for disturbing the peace or some other minor offense.
They don't arrest him.
Well, maybe they stick him in the tank for a minute. But the point is, even if they didn't, they take him away from your house, right? You can't be, you're trespassing. Maybe they book him for trespassing.
More often than not, they say, nothing we can do.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They come to, he didn't actually get into your house. He didn't actually do anything. There's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied.
Right.
the deep web, or the dark web as we call it, is that it's that catalyst. It's that guy at the door that wants to kill you, and he didn't do it yet, so you can't convict him. But there are people that are doing it, they're advertising it, they're showing the proof of it, and faked is one thing, I get it, and I get morbid curiosity, I get those things, but what I don't get is that for the 1 out of 1,000 that is really happening and really there, that should be enough to say, this isn't okay. It's so not okay that we gotta squash it, and we gotta stop it in its tracks. I don't get why that's not the case. I don't get a letting it go. You know, I at my best, I can see it as a, we're gonna get them, we're gonna catch them, we're gonna find them. But there are guys that do those things, but they're also computer hack geniuses that make sure they don't get caught. Or not that they don't get caught, but they don't get found.
So you really think that there is just a rash of hundreds of cases of, murder for voyeurist pleasure that any one of us could go, if we were willing to get on the dark web, or if we were in the FBI and, had license to do so and research it, that we could just, today, we could pinpoint 500 guys or people that have committed murder on camera and go get them.
I'm saying you can stumble across those things. I'm not saying I'm not giving it a number.
Okay, but
I'm saying even one's too many.
If we invested, well, I understand that, but I mean, like, there's the "don't fuck with cats" thing, where it took like a whole team of internet sleuths, just people like us that really, put their time in, and started finding the guy that kept posting all of his Luca Manana or whatever the heck his name is, kept posting how he was torturing cats, and then he ended up beheading a guy on camera, and it was not the FBI, it was just people that stayed on top of looking at this and communicating with each other, that they finally kind of helped the authorities track him down.
Right, but what I'm saying is if that 1 out of 1,000,000 guy is being glorified, nurtured to the point that he's actually being paid to do something insane that he thinks is cool, and people are willing to go and find this guy and seek it out and pay him to see it, which is something that's happening on the dark web, that's the first part. The second part is, we talked about how perhaps one of the algorithms within the dark web is that it zeroes in on your location, so that if you get on the dark web, you find yourself on purpose or an accident in the sight of a person that is near you. And that person might be someone that does want to do harm to you, kidnap you, purge you for facts about your life that you don't want to give out, purge your friends and your family for those for facts about their lives, and use them against you, and use it against them. There are documented cases of people who have gotten on the dark web and gave up information they shouldn't have, and were kidnapped from it, or a friend of theirs was kidnapped from it, and never seen or heard from again. And that, it's like the drugs and the guns and the pedophilia and the torture, those are all as bad as a thing as I can already think of. That should already not be allowed. But then you throw into that mix abductions and murders glorified on a site, and it's technically kind of okay as long as you went to the dark web and not the regular internet to find it. That's fucking weird.
So, are you saying that murder is bad if it's not on camera?
Yeah.
If it's not for a video, it's still terrible.
Of course. I'm just saying it's being glorified on a website.
But that this glorifies murder. This dark web glorifies murder.
It does.
So let's perfect world this whole scenario. We just shut down every website that, and I don't even know how we would police this, but we shut down every website that is quote unquote dark web. Somehow we could automatically know what is and what isn't dark web material, and we shut down all those websites. Okay, what happens then?
I know exactly where you're going with this.
No, I'm asking you, what happens then? What's the ideal situation?
Well, I'm going to say, okay, well, here's where I think you're going with it. I think you're going with it like, isn't that serial murderer going to keep being a serial murderer, whether or not he can post it up on the web? And the answer is yes, he probably is. But let me pose it to you this way. If that serial murderer is the kind of guy that he murders when he finds the right, like Ted Bundy or people like that, Gacy, they were typically looking for like a specific, like long hair, blue eyes, dark hair, white skin, whatever. They had these things that they were kind of
a type.
A type, yeah. They were looking for a certain thing, and they were also sometimes it was a sexual thing for them. There were these catalysts that brought them to the point of that's the one I want to get. Kind of like in Silence of the Lambs, he knew he wanted to be like that neighbor. He knew who they were. He'd studied them. He'd watched them for a while. Okay, and he made a decision that was going to be someone on his plate of murders. Huh?
Sorry.
What?
I was telling the camera I'd fuck me.
No, don't. 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 That is so terrible.
So we had to derail at some point.
You derailed. So you made me lose my thought. So my thought is that, okay, yes, there's that guy. But all of a sudden, if that guy is able to get on the web and get paid.
Become an influencer?
Yes.
A dark influencer?
He's getting paid, let's say he's making 25 grand every 3 months by killing somebody on the web and pushing it as a fake, what do you call that fake one? What do you call them? Fake?
Deep fakes?
Yeah, something
or
like that.
what are you talking about?
Yeah, where they say it was fake, but it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So he pushes it as it's a fake thing you're saying, but it's just to quell your morbid curiosity. But now instead of just going after the ones he was going to go after because they fit some sort of a mold, now he's doing it because he's getting paid. He's actually getting paid for it, and he's getting some fame out of it. So now he's getting the ego boost and money, and it's getting glorified, like I said before. I would think that what could have been 10 murders turned into 20 because it was glorified on the fucking deep web.
Okay, so I mean, we can't just make sweeping changes don't work in a free society. You can't just decide something's wrong and just sweep it away. It just doesn't work. You got to make a law. We are a society of laws. So we have laws where if you are the one who is creating child pornography, then you absolutely get, thrown in the dungeon, throw away the key, hopefully death penalty. Mm-hmm. If you're consuming that content, you're also put in jail for a very long time. I mean, is there not law that says if you're consuming murder content, you won't also be thrown in jail? Are there laws? And if not, there needs to be.
Isn't it like if a kidnapper walked up to your door, and let's say he's been convicted 3 times, but he didn't actually kidnap you. All he did was knock on your door.
Yeah.
Are the police going to walk up and pat him on the back and go, "It's okay, buddy. Good job. You didn't do it today. We know what you're capable of. You crazy kidnapper, you. But at least you didn't do it today. So we got nothing on you." Mm. I feel like the deep web is graying and blurring those lines and letting it go. And that's a problem for me. I have a real problem with it. I don't think it's wrong for me to have a problem with it. And I don't understand why it's not being nipped in the bud. And it should be.
Oh, it's way past the bud, buddy.
I know, and I'm not saying that there's any one answer. What I am saying is, if it can be squashed, let's just say, for instance, the federal government said, we are going to terminate this. We're going to destroy it from all facets. Everything that we're going to take all of our resources and we are going to kill it. And then another one springs up. Use all those damn resources and kill that one too. And kill it and kill it and kill it until it doesn't come back. And if every time it comes back, every 2 months for the next 50 years. Kill the fucking things every damn 2 months for the next 50 damn years. There shouldn't be a dark web at all, much less any more of them. And if there are any more of them, kill them. If a guy murders somebody, you put him in jail. The dark web exists, put it in jail. And if he escapes, put it back in jail and keep doing it. If they have to do it every fucking day, do it. I just don't understand letting it go and, well, maybe we get a guy out of it. I mean, great, but don't give him fuel for fodder. Don't give him room to breathe and room to move and room to advertise. I mean, would you let a serial killer mentor your kid? No. And the deep state, not the deep state, maybe the deep state, but the deep web is basically
Freudian slip.
It's allowing the murderer to the serial killer to mentor your fragile-brained little kid, because he can go there and check it out, and you never know. I mean, he starts off doing it when he's like 14, and it just started off as an innocent, morbid curiosity, but all of a sudden he's 23, and now he's thinking he wants to try it out. Why would you let that occur?
So you think our anti-censorship
is working against us in this regard?
Is now getting us, or
too much of a good thing.
Certain people are hiding behind the good idea,
right? Which is brings me back to the deep web. Is that if there's 50 people on the block and only one of them's a serial murderer, it's okay as long as everybody lives in harmony along that block. No one's going to worry about the one serial killer on the block. I am. He doesn't bother anybody. He doesn't get in anyone's shit. He mows his lawn every 2 weeks.
I don't feel like our society has gone that far.
I feel like that's where we're at.
I mean, do you not? I mean, there's all sorts of ways that people get just constant updates of sexual predators and, convicted criminals. I mean, you could get it. I can get it on my credit app. It'll send me a notification. Hey, by the way, sexual abuser moved into your neighborhood, just letting you know.
This kind of comes down to that ideal of, if you've seen something over and over, you're kind of dead to it.
I think the word you're looking for is...
If you say Dean Cain, I'm going to kill you.
There's no touching. The word you're looking for...
You become numb to it.
Yeah. Just say numb.
Yeah. So you come numb to that. You become numb to it. You do. You become numb to it. It's like, if you know that when you go on that website that shows you where there's sexual predators, right? When it used to be that would be, if there was one, it would be horrifying. But now it's like, there's 80.
There's another
in 1 square mile of your house, and you're like, what the? Now, and then we can take it to the next level. Of those 80 sexual predators, registered sexual predators, do you realize that you can be labeled and convicted sexual predator if you urinated in public? How many of those 80 people...
That's a fucking problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's this huge disparity between what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and being numb to what's not acceptable to the point of it being almost acceptable. And the deep web is a perfect example of that. And I think it's disgusting. And I think it's not a little bit of I'm just kind of showing who I am. It's not just a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for?
Freedom of expression.
Freedom of expression. It's not just a little bit of freedom of expression. It's gone off the rails into downright diabolical behavior that is nurtured and allowed to occur. And even if you catch one guy or two guys, that's not enough of a reason to let it continue. It should be squashed. That's my final word on it. Do you have a final word on it, Colin?
Wow, you've said a mouthful.
I've got all kinds of mouthfuls.
I mean, you've said basically we need to squash the dark web industry. I think I agree with you that I don't know of anything good.
It goes over the top.
I don't know of anything good that comes from the dark web. I really don't. I have a hard time. I mean, like we have offshore gambling. I mean,
But
is that
this isn't a
terrible?
website called the White Web, where or the Light Web, where everyone shares gummy bears and hugs. That's different. No one's getting hurt by that. The dark web, people are getting hurt, killed, murdered,
I know.
kidnapped.
But let's talk real quick. I know you asked for final thoughts, but I have to say, like, gambling, it's allowed in Nevada.
So what?
It's not allowed in other states.
That's fine.
Laws were made.
That's state.
But in I don't know what's
Okay, let me put it this way. If you drew a big circle, and all of we all agree on these main laws. Don't murder, don't steal.
okay.
Right?
Sure.
Those are, everybody agrees on these. Then there's another circle around that one, and that's the one that everyone doesn't completely agree on the ones in that circle. It's a little bit more
Can we
gray
debate
area.
on what murder
If
and
you want to
stealing are?
gamble, you're not hurting anybody, you want to lose all your money on blackjack, that's your business, go ahead. And other people say, well, I have a problem with it, so don't have it in your state.
You want to
Okay?
pay a sex worker. Other
Right.
people say it's prostitution.
That's fine. If that's a gray area. The middle circle is the absolutely we all agree murder's not okay, thievery's not okay, blah blah blah. Then there's the outside circle, which is where it's a little bit gray area, and then the next circle out is the well, who gives a shit? Do what you want. That middle circle where everyone agrees these are wrong, these shouldn't be allowed. Those are prominently. They prominently exist on the deep web, and it's allowed.
That's what the deep web is for. Is all those things
Yeah.
that are
Absolutely out of the question. Okay, not okay.
pretty much universally agreed upon as wrong. And that's
Yes.
where you go for it. And you're saying that it's being allowed to happen. And I think I might, as devil's advocate to you, say it's there. It can't be just shut down, and that there are some people that want to go there to explore it, to try to figure out what's wrong with the human psyche.
Agreed.
I mean, when we were kids,
but I chalk that to the word curiosity.
when we were kids, before the internet and everything else, I mean, snuff films have always been a thing, but
and they were never okay.
never okay. But remember
Certainly
Faces
we're
of
getting paid
Death?
for it. Yeah.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
But that
and
wasn't
6.
a video of a guy just killing people and getting paid for it. It was a guy showing videos of people who died horribly.
Or that were
Accidentally.
murdered terribly.
Yeah,
in
but
a
it wasn't.
video.
But he didn't do it. The guy that put the film out didn't physically go out and kill people and go, "Look what I did!" And if you want to see more, pay me $20 an hour. This is different.
But I think it's the evolution of that, and just
Wow.
like the internet is the evolution of the VHS age, you know, and the radio age, and it's putting television and VHS and movie and news reporting and everything else and combining it into one thing, and then you had that little piece of the VHS world that was devoted to snuff films and things that you're not supposed to see and are not supposed to exist.
Right, but when the line was crossed.
But then when you expand all of it and you expand entertainment and visual audio entertainment in so many ways, in every way possible with the internet age, that little piece has grown and it feeds itself.
I get it. You're saying that there's the spectrum is like this, and this part of the spectrum grew a little bit.
It has.
But this
And
part of the
that's bad.
spectrum is being not just we're looking for those dudes. This is here's a place for them. Let them go. And if we find one or two, great, but just let it go.
So you really feel like it's just being run rampant and nobody cares?
To a degree that's not acceptable.
Or that our society's not talking about it enough to where we're actually even paying attention.
Yes, I think
We're so focused on so many other things, or that we have just too much going on that we're not even paying attention to something that important.
Yeah, it's like letting the serial killer next door live out his life as long as he mows his lawn every 2 weeks and keeps his yard looking good. That's what it feels like to me.
So in this information age, that bad information that leads to bad behavior, I mean,
a line was crossed.
we're not throwing out the bathwater. We don't want to throw out the baby or some shit.
Yeah, again,
Bad metaphor.
it would be different if the dark web was simply just people entertaining a little bit of, again, I hate to say the word again, but I'm going to say it again.
Morbid
A
curiosity.
little bit of morbid curiosity. If it was just entertaining the idea of it to a little bit too far, but not quite jumping over the fucking moon with it. But that's not the case. The dark web jumps over the moon and Jupiter.
But isn't
It
it?
goes over the top.
It's like any black market economy. It's like any organized crime syndicate. Like, I mean, organized crime syndicates are going to have almost legit business that they're going to be conducting. But because there's maybe drug trade or something attached to it, or illegal gun trade, because it's already just under the surface.
So the dark web is the mafia of now.
I mean, I don't.
And let it go.
I think it's something worse than that.
Oh.
But worse than the mafia, the dark web.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, attached to, once you cross the line into criminal activity, even if it's, I mean, the American way, the capitalist way, is to make money and to get ahead any way you can. And I think that in our society, we do kind of turn a blind eye to those that become drug dealers, trade, make their money, and then go straight. Maybe launder it just right, and then they go straight, open a business, and now they make money the honest way. I think there's a part of us, of American ethos in all of us, that will say, that's okay. He did it. He found a way to get ahead, and he kind of skirted the line by trading drugs.
Yeah.
But now he's, legit, and he went straight, like, good job, Johnny, you figured it out. And so with that whole mentality comes everything that's attached to the drug trade, which is everything that is horrible. I mean, there is murder attached to it. There is, once you're on that side of the law, you never know. It could be human trafficking, it could be murder, it could be, anything dark and seedy and wrong.
Right.
Is on that side of it. But you can turn a blind eye to it if someone does it just long enough to get ahead and then go straight.
Is it the same for serial murders?
I mean, is a serial murderer not someone who's in organized crime and constantly murders people that are fighting for their turf?
Right, but there's a difference
Or
between
their economy?
There's a difference between selling weed for a bunch of money and then going straight and killing 9 guys and going, it's cool, I'm done with that side of my life. That's just it's out of my I got it out of my blood.
Okay, but
I'm good. I'm not going to kill any more people.
Well, let's take weed out of it, or maybe weed is just as bad, but let's say it is heroin, or let's say it is a true hard drug trade, and let's say there's the one guy who keeps the books, and he's associated, but he never kills anybody, but he does that for a while, and then he gets out and goes straight. Or maybe it's the guy that actually, owns the business. But he never touched anybody, but he hires some guy that killed 9 people in the process. Is he okay?
If you decided to hire someone to kill your spouse and it was an undercover cop, you're going to jail for murder. Do you know that?
Sure.
Good. They didn't actually commit murder.
That's great.
They didn't even, not only did they not commit murder, they only asked someone to do it. And that person didn't even do it. It never even occurred, but they're being convicted of it.
Tells me it's happened enough that they finally made some laws.
The deep web is that with no conviction.
Maybe it's just not being talked about enough.
I think that maybe you're right. Maybe we need to open up this Pandora's box again in the future.
Real quick, I've thought plenty of times about the dark web and thought, I'm not going there. I've never thought about it as deeply as what you're saying, which is, this is an actual fucking problem.
It's a problem.
Good for you.
Thanks, buddy. Really, I hated every second of talking to you this time. You're a piece of shit, and I hate your guts.
We're talking to you, Ryan.
Especially you, Ryan. But on top of Ryan, the little icing on the cake, is this piece of crap over here. Now, Colin, you're an awesome dude. Thanks for coming on the show again. I really appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And remember, folks, all of this is diabolical.